In 1324, the Bishop of Ossory, Richard Ledred, accused Alice Kyteler, along with 11 of her family, friends, and servants, of witchcraft. What followed was an unprecedented event in Irish and European history. In the introduction to their sourcebook on the Kyteler trial, editors L.S. Davidson and J.O. Ward observed that the Kyteler case gave us the first instance of a woman, not Alice, burned for heresy related to witchcraft, the first time a woman, Alice, was accused of sex with the devil, and the first trial of an accused sect of witches. Today on Occult Confessions, the trial and disappearance of Alice Kyteler. And so we begin our series on occult disappearances. And we, of course, would begin such a series with our two most occultly disappeared alchemical actors, Jake Wheatley, Knight of the Dangling Serpent.
What?
Who has only just surfaced after a long absence. We thought he was gone in the swamp, maybe an alligator got him, but no, he's right there. He's been on Twitch the whole time. Twitching.
I've been on Twitch the whole time, just showing, twitching, showing. I've been here. Just apparently nobody was looking hard enough for me. I was trying to get attention by going live on Twitch to be like, guys, I'm right here.
Stop talking about how an alligator got me, guys. I'm right here.
Guys, just send me money, tip me, please.
Nikki Hiller Henderson mysteriously carried off by a moose in mid-November. Back in the saddle.
It was a long hike, guys. The prairies, it's just flat. It's just nothing. I was walking home for like 17 days straight. I saw it, but I just couldn't get to it.
And remember, Nikki.
Cabs look incredible now.
Nikki's characteristically nude in her own home, so she had to murder several beavers just to, adorn herself so that she didn't freeze to death.
I would never murder animals. It was all leaves, okay? It was very Adam and Eve style.
In the fall? Aren't they crinkly at that point? Yeah. They just kept falling apart.
Look, it was a constant upkeep.
Slap
it was
yourself in maple syrup.
Constant upkeep.
Rolled in the leaves.
Yes, I just rolled in some moths.
Like a true Canadian.
Giant ball of leaves walking down the Canadian highway.
I think I saw that on the news, actually.
That was Nikki.
So you were also on TV too.
Right? And no one could find me.
Guys, we're trying to get noticed.
So bad. So bad.
It's happening right here at the beginning of our Occult Disappearances series. My name is Rob C. Thompson, and we are about to pledge it out. We, the members of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors, do solemnly commit ourselves to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it. All right, then. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Make a sound, Jake. We're going to open up that order of confessors. Very nice. Very nice.
Oh, I heard it ringing. It echoed in here.
I heard that all the way on Twitch.
I'm live right now, actually.
We've been doing our interview episodes with Luke for a couple, 6 weeks now, so we've collected our fair share of patrons in that time. Welcoming patron thank yous: Jackson H, Ross M, Alyssa, Christine H, Gwen M, Michael T, Baphomatique, Ash, Crabo de la Creme, Tyro, Carrie F, and Kelly G. Over on Patreon, we are doing some lessons in occult history featuring yours truly, and I'm beginning to post those up for patrons to listen to offline, although we're also welcoming patrons to join us online. So check it out. Nikki, give us a sound. In many ways, the story of Alice Kyteler is caught up in the larger conflict between religious and secular authority during the latter half of the medieval period. You guys love the medieval period, right?
Absolutely.
I love the people threw their shit out windows. Sorry, that's the first thing that came to mind. It's disgusting. I hate that. I would think everyone probably smelled really bad.
I wish we could go back to the good old days when we used to throw our shit out the windows.
What a time. What a time. The struggle between church and state centered around jurisdiction between canon law and English common law, so church law and, the secular arm. Of central concern was whether the case of Alice Kyteler was a case of maleficium, which is to say harm by magic, or if it was a case of heresy. Maleficium was generally regarded as a civil matter, something for the state to deal with. Whereas heresy, well, of course, that's going to be tried by the church. But heresy was also punished by the state, and it remained an open question whether a bishop could order the arrest of a heretic using secular officers. So bishops didn't have, like cops, church cops, So who does the arrest? No, yeah, they lack their own. I think the Pope, right, had, his armies, the Hospitallers and stuff, but you're just regular workaday bishop. He's not walking around with, a team of investigative
I guess they
detectives.
just counted on people turning on each other and but
how do you? Yes, the Pope gets mad and he just shouts from his door, this guy is a heretic, and he just waits for someone to.
And they all come with pitchforks and
citizens
fire.
arrest.
We first visited this conflict on this show in our discussion of the Knights Templar, speaking of the Hospitallers. In the year 1300, Boniface VIII threw a jubilee in honor of the supposed anniversary of Christ's birth. We say supposed because Christ, after all, could have been born within 12 years of the year 1. Anyhow, year 1300, Boniface is throwing a big party. He sits on a throne. He's surrounded by a throng of about 200,000 pilgrims, and he shouts, "I am Caesar!" He collects a whole lot of money while he's there. This is sort of like a night with Jake, right? And
yeah, absolutely. I do the same.
So now the money, of course, goes into Boniface's pocket. Boniface was already under suspicion for the strange resignation of his predecessor, fell further into disfavor among the elite. Just FYI, the Pope before Boniface, he was a monk and he just wanted to go back to the monastery, so he quit being Pope, which is really weird. Nobody quits being Pope. You die. You're supposed to die as a Pope. I was going to
say, yeah, I thought it was like a lifelong position.
Only way out. So there's only been a couple times in history. Benedict was one of them where a Pope quit. So Benedict was like the first time in thousands of years or something, or 1,000 years. So Boniface, everyone's like, oh, this Boniface, he talked the Pope into it. He talked the Pope out of being Pope. He just stole the papacy. So he was already in bad shape. And then he threw a big party, called himself Caesar, took all this money. So Philippe le Bel, or Philippe the Fair, who was the monarch in France, doesn't like Boniface at all. And he finds this declaration, "I am Caesar," very unnerving, because Caesar is a secular authority and the Pope is supposed to just be spiritual authority. And Philippe is king of France. He's supposed to be Caesar. Boniface spent much of his time at his ancestral palace in Agnani within Philippe's kingdom. The king of France doesn't like you. You probably shouldn't hang out in France. But that's what Boniface liked to do. It's where his ancestral lands were, right? You always want to be in your ancestral lands. I hate going away from my ancestral lands. So
sorry you're so far away from them.
I am, yeah. It's really New Jersey.
Yeah.
So
make a pilgrimage back occasionally.
I do, yeah. I do. As do you, Jake. Make the pilgrimage back to and right, Nikki, you make the pilgrimage back to your homeland.
I make the pilgrimage across the prairies covered in leaves.
Philippe was intent on wresting authority from the church and helped orchestrate a smear campaign against the Templars, who he regarded as a foreign army on French soil. Remember, the Templars are one of the Pope's armies. Weird, the Pope has an army, but he does. Not a police force, but an army. It was a French inquisitor who accused the Templars of ritualistic blasphemy and anus kissing. So long as you're there.
What?
Was that just were they just slandering them? They were just you're ass kissers, or was that an actual thing they were accusing them of?
No, but literally, yeah. No, literally anus kissing, yeah.
Oh.
It's part of a ritual to join them. You had to kiss the butt of the, your higher knight.
Just like college. That's
just like.
I don't know.
I remember that night in the theater. Yeah.
Yes.
So as long as we're anus kissing, we might as well get up to some sodomy and some idol worship. So,
One
yes,
thing
they're
leads
accused
to
of all these
another.
things. Right. Why not? The head of Baphomet famously associated with these guys. Philippe also conspired to establish the Avignon papacy. When Boniface's successor died after only a year and the cardinals couldn't reach a decision, Philippe pressured them to elect the Archbishop of Bordeaux as Pope Clement V in 1305. This is the beginning of the conclave. You know, we just had the new Chicago Pope. Before this, we didn't have a conclave. Yeah.
And send up the smoke.
It was Philippe's idea.
Oh.
He had a flair for the theatrics. I like that.
We said, you guys got to make a decision. I'm locking you in this room till you come up with somebody.
He's literally smoking them out.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know how this works.
Every hour until you make a decision.
So Clement V relocated the papal court to France, to Avignon, where it remained through the reign of 7 popes until 1376. At the time of the Kyteler trial, back to our Irish witch, the Pope in Avignon was Clement's successor, John XXII. So we're now, 3 popes in from Boniface. We're on our second Avignon Pope. John had survived an attempted assassination as Bishop of Fréjus in southern France before being appointed Chancellor to Charles II of Naples. As bishop, his legal opinions split the controversies around the church. John XXII defended the suppression of the Templars. He was like, screw those knights, they are anus kissers. But he also defended the policies and principles of Boniface VIII, who usually is lumped in with the Templars for being a bad Catholic. After Clement's death, the cardinals were divided and took 2 years to elect a successor, finally arriving at John when Philippe the Tall, Philippe the Fair's successor, brought them to Lyon, and, as I said, refused to let them leave until they'd made a choice. So I was wrong. It's Philippe the Tall, not Philippe the Fair, who creates the conclave.
How did they...
Well, if they took 2 years, I mean...
Yeah.
It's a long time.
You gotta learn to make up your mind at that point.
How are you going around without a pope? What does God want you to do for 2 years?
Who's going to talk to him?
You don't know.
I don't know how... I'm so sorry. I really
God's
don't know
gonna
how it
get
works.
so lonely. No one's gonna pick up his phone calls.
It's rough. In Ireland, so let's get to Ireland, right?
The homeland.
The homeland. John XXII's back and forth with the British King Edward II, who is also famously accused of sodomy, by the way. Edward II attempted to maintain more than a century's worth of lordship control over Ireland, and he struck a similar chord as far as the tension between the church and the state. So let me tell you the story of Ireland now. So we got all this. I understand today is a day for medieval politics, which Nikki and Jake love. That's why they're here. So let's just be clear,
I
right?
know so much about that. I love when they would joust for justice.
Joust for Justice. Yeah, that was an important fundraiser. Yeah.
Everything I know about medieval times is from the Sims Medievals game. So
Jousting for Justice. So we've got this. So politics number 1. We just finished political crisis number 1, and that is around the papacy and Boniface VIII and the Templars. And it's basically church v state. In France, a lot of this, French secular authority is attempting to kick out, or reduce the church's power in secular affairs. So now in Ireland, there's this whole other thing going on with Edward II vying for British control of Ireland and the Irish trying to, not be controlled by the British. So the bishoprics of Cashel and Dublin were vacant, and Edward II wanted to keep them from going to native Irishmen. He wants no native Irishmen to run the place, even in the church. John XXII, the Pope, took Edward's suggestion for Dublin and appointed Alexander Bickner, who came from Edward's personal list of recommendations. When he promoted the Bishop of Ossory to Cashel, he replaced Ossory with the French Richard Ledred, the man who would go on to prosecute Kyteler. So Edward II is the one who says, I don't want any Irishmen in charge here. John XXII says, okay, Edward, I got you. Here's this guy, Bickner, who obviously isn't Irish, and here's this French dude. No Irishman running this place.
Why did they not want Irishmen there?
Well, Edward II is British, so he wants to keep Ireland under Britain's thumb. And in order to do that,
British, yes.
yeah, keep Ireland British. Yeah,
I could not get that out. I'm so sorry.
It's both your ancestors.
They're fighting. Oh.
It's kind
So
of
in order to do that-
manifesting.
you don't want any Irish
Flashbacks.
leaders. So John the 22nd allowed the British king to also keep the tax levied for the Crusades, but reminded Edward that he had to swear an oath to the Pope. So Edward II is also like, hey, we're taxing everybody to have crusades. Can I just keep that money? John says, fine,
Sure.
but you are still loyal to me. The Irish princes, for their part, wrote to Avignon that they preferred Edward the Bruce, brother of Robert the Bruce, as their sovereign. The Scottish Robert the Bruce had successfully defeated Edward II at the famous Battle of Bannockburn and sent his brother to invade and claim Ireland back from the British. Edward the Bruce was defeated and died after 3 years of campaigning in the year 1318, just 6 years before the Kyteler trial. So here we have a Scottish uprising against the British that is going very well, and the Scottish are like, well, while we're at it, let's just free the Irish. So they send their guy over to Ireland, but he dies. And Edward II, no thank you. And we're very close to the Kyteler trial. In 1155, the British Pope Adrian IV, the only British Pope ever, by the way, in the entire history of the Catholic Church, Adrian IV is the only British Pope, just like we have the first American Pope. Yes, there's never been another British Pope.
What was it, like a lesson learned type of thing, or it's just like, it happened? I
He
don't
said never again.
No, one was enough.
Well,
We
it's
were
kinda
drinking
wild 'cause,
far
like,
too much tea.
British, they had a colonization on like a lot of the world at one point, so it's kind of crazy that there's only been one British Pope.
It is, yeah. The Brits are, not associated with Catholicism post Henry VIII. So, I mean, historically, there's a logic to that. Mm-hmm. Adrian IV is 1155. You would have thought maybe in the medieval period there would have been another one or two. I was actually listening to a podcast with a British guest, and she was saying, I don't think there's ever been a British Pope. And I was like, wait, I know for a fact there was
one.
exactly one. And his name was Adrian. Anyhow, Adrian IV had given the British king full claim to Ireland. So there you go. What else are you going to do if you're a British Pope? Just give the British,
That's why
stuff.
they don't let it happen again.
No, yeah, because he was just giving countries
British
away.
Colonizing of them.
John ignored
Very
Ireland's
on-brand.
request. John the 22nd ignored Ireland's request to revoke this gift after Adrian, because 1155, this was much earlier, and hand Ireland to the Bruces. So basically, the Irish write to the Pope and say, listen, we like the Scottish. Can we be them now? And he says, nah, sorry, too bad.
Nice try.
At the same time, the Pope used Ireland's request to keep Edward II in line, threatening to revisit Adrian IV's decree if needed. So it's a Pope who says Ireland belongs to Britain, so it's a Pope who theoretically can take it back. So this is a way of keeping the British from getting out of line in relation to the papacy. Doesn't work forever, Henry VIII, but in the medieval period, it's working just fine. The day will come when the British are just over it. Okay, so there's your second slate of politics. Now here's the third one. Let's focus right on the Pope himself at the time of Alice Kyteler's trial, John the 22nd. A whole lot of popes wanted to be John, didn't they?
Did they not have any other names to pick from?
They do. I mean, there was 4 Adrians and 5 Clements. There were Celestines and Innocents, but yeah, everyone wanted to be John.
Maybe the list of names just sucks. Those are the only good options.
Classic.
Well, Francis was the first Francis, right? He was Francis
Really?
the first. I think so, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. What's the new Pope? Leo. He's a Leo.
Leo.
There's been several Leos.
Leo VIII.
Yeah, something. Is he?
I don't
Okay.
know, actually. I don't know why that sounded right to me, but
Sounded pretty good.
yeah.
So, in 1318, John, he named himself after his horoscope, of course.
Naturally.
Very Catholic, very Catholic. They just love the horoscopes.
He's a horoscope girly. We knew it.
Yeah, of course. He's always reading Leo. So, John the 22nd was particularly afraid of sorcery. Let's focus in on the Pope. And he issued a papal bull against sorcery, labeling it a heresy. Now, here's where it gets complicated, right? Remember what I said at the beginning. Maleficium, which is when you cursed a neighbor, was a civil act. You had essentially gone and, torn up their lawn or peed in their rose bushes, you know what I mean? You just committed a crime against them in the material plane. Yes, you used supernatural means to do it, but it was a material injury, so we have a civil suit. We take you, to court, like, Judge Judy or something. But John the 22nd screws all this up because he says, just because he's terrified of sorcerers, Merlin is on his mind. He says, well, you know what? If you're committing maleficium, sorcery, that's also a heresy. So now, if you're accused of maleficium, you also are accused of a sin against the church and can be tried by both the church and the state. This is the beginning of witchcraft.
Wow. So a lot of our laws and rules against witchcraft is just because someone was scared.
Yep.
Someone pulled a coin out from behind his ear and it terrified him, and he was like,
crazy.
Devils, all of you.
Honestly, Jake, some of those fears and aversions are visiting us right now in America, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it was topical.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
The leader's personal phobias and fears can inform the actions of the state.
Tough time.
So in 1318, John prosecuted members of his own papal court for heresy. This extended to a growing fear of women operating outside the strict confines of marriage or a convent, the only two places where ladies belonged in 1318. In 1317, the church accused the female ascetic Beguines of heresy. The Beguines are fascinating. They were women who devoted themselves to living a life in emulation of Christ, choosing abstinence and serving the poor, but they did not take any religious vows. They refused to join a convent. So, bucking that authority, right? Nikki, on board?
No,
You
I
with
like
this?
that. They're taking all of the stuff that they deem good from it. They're like, we want to help people who need help, and I guess I don't know what the whole abstinence thing is. Like, that still seems a little sexist. Like, you belong to Jesus in a way. Like, your body's for God, and it's like, what does God want to do with it? That's weird. But I like that they wanted to help people more than, like, be a part of a religion.
I'd say, they're not joining a convent, right? So it's a religious choice, don't get me wrong, but they don't want to join the organized convent. And I think what I would add to this, something to just keep in mind, is that historically, medieval period, Renaissance period, a convent was not necessarily full of abstinent women. I know that sounds shocking, but priests were not necessarily abstinent in this time period. They were supposed to be,
Thought you were
but they
hinting
often
at
weren't.
lesbianism.
I think the Beguines are more likely to have been lesbian than
Heck
like
yeah, no, they
convent.
are my girls. I knew it. See, if they're
Because-
devoting themselves to abstinence in lieu of, because that means lesbianism because of the time period and the definition of abstinence, I'm cool with that.
I think, and I am not an expert on this, but in all the reading I've done in this time period, there is a reasonable case to be made that sex is a penetrative encounter between a male and a female.
Baby making.
Baby making. So I think a lot of homosexual acts
Just
Could have
slide
just-
under the radar.
Off the
Yeah,
record,
yeah.
baby.
off the record.
Jesus can't see your lesbianism.
I can't say that for a fact, so don't quote me on that, but there's a logic to it.
I'm going
Anyway.
to.
On your next
got-
Twitch stream.
I've got a lot of people to talk to be like, you were wrong. You chastised me for no reason. This doesn't count.
Never
Rob says.
counted.
Never counted.
They often lived, the Beguines lived separately but alongside each other in neighborhoods, so they would each have their own little hut. As many as 400 women lived this way in Paris, so imagine that neighborhood. and roughly 1,000 had gathered together in the city of Ghent. Sometimes the women performed miracles, and sometimes they wrote about their mystical experiences, which could, of course, run afoul of church authority. Whenever anybody is talking to God directly and circumventing the hierarchy, that gets the Catholics upset. And by the Catholics, I just mean the Christian church at this period. There's nobody else. In 1311, Marguerite Poiret, who gained notoriety for her mystical text on the fate of the soul, which she argued joined with God after death, was tried by Franciscan monks and burned at the stake. Boo. So, Ledred...
They're just jealous that they couldn't perform miracles.
Maybe so. I mean, I think so. The miracles were not approved in advance. Pre-approval for your miracos.
Like, isn't that the point of miracles? Is that it's not like not like a structured thing? It's not planned. Oh.
So now let's get closer and closer to Alice here. Let's talk about our Irish-French Bishop Ledred. Ledred was appointed by John XXII to the bishopric of Ossory soon after John ascended to the throne, and he was a French-educated papal appointee with no ties whatsoever to Ireland. Just a random foreign dude dropping down in the middle of Ossory. Ledred's first actions in his new role were to speak to the culture that he walked into in Ireland, which was apparently a bit bawdy and a bit sexier than the one than someone would expect who was of the Catholic clergy. So, in other words, let me say this differently. Ledred comes to Ireland, and the behavior of the nuns and priests shocks and offends him. They're acting a little bit too sexy.
You're not holy enough.
Well, when he arrived, Ledred held a synod at which he scolded his clergy for the keeping of concubines. One more time. Scolded his clergy for the keeping of concubines.
Yeah, I didn't think that was something they were allowed to do.
No sex buddies. It's just a sex buddy. It's just a friend with benefits, Nikki. Come on. We're not getting married or anything.
I just didn't think they... Well, I guess they can't get married. It doesn't say anything about friends with benefits. Until that guy came along and then said no more.
Yeah, he shut the party down. We were having such a good time being priests, and then suddenly it wasn't fun anymore.
Priests with benefits.
I'll tell you, priests, yes.
Sorry.
I'll tell you how much fun it was. Ledred also published 60 hymns because he had to replace the lewd secular songs that his priests were singing in church.
What was it, like WAP or something?
I once knew a man from Nantucket.
Okay, YouTube literally recommended me. It was a medieval version of WAP, and that's all I can think of right now. Like on the lute.
There it is. It's exactly like that.
Wow.
The thong song, but, in Old Irish. Let me see thine thong. I want to do more lyrics. I'm not going to. It's okay.
What were those priests praising before that guy got there?
Okay. Yeah, you're all doing it, aren't you? You're doing it in your head, or you're doing the lyrics of the thong song, but with a little bit of that Shakespeare speak? Yeah. Ledred was regularly in conflict with the civil authorities and wrote to the Pope to complain about being harassed, robbed, imprisoned, and that the secular authorities withheld tithes, which is to say, Ledred was regularly harassed, robbed, imprisoned, and didn't receive the tithes he was looking for. He's not having a great time in Ireland.
He's just getting bullied as soon as he gets
They're
there.
taking my money and they're not giving me any money.
Yeah, he's just this random French dude who won't let us sing our ye old thong song, so...
No, we're not giving you tithes.
We're keeping our 10%.
We are definitely going to bully him.
I would.
Alice...
Sounds like a prude, honestly.
Yeah.
Alice Kyteler arrived in Ireland with a family of Flemish merchants. Oh, Everett, you are back. It is way past your bedtime, buddy. going to bed very soon. Good night. Good night. Okay, here we go. Alice Kyteler arrived in Ireland with a family of Flemish merchants. So what does it mean to be Flemish? It means you're from Flanders, home of the Flemish. Flanders is where they imported English wool, and the Flems then wove it into cloth and exported it. The county of Flanders was part of the Principalities of France, and its count or marquis was one of the original 12 French peers. So, you know, like those big shot aristocrats. The peers, the peerage. Kyteler would have emigrated around the time when France was attempting to conquer Flanders. So Flanders is in sort of like part of France. So the French are like, oh, just go ahead and take that. Philippe the Fair was anxious to expand his power and influence, as the conflict with Boniface shows, and his taxes raised the ire of the Flemish. When the Count of Flanders, Guy of Dampierre, attempted to marry his daughter to the Prince of Wales, effectively setting up a political alliance with the Welsh against the French. So you're following me so far? The head of Flanders, the Count of Flanders, is like, man, the French are coming to, you know, clean our clocks here. I'm going to team up with the Welsh. They seem pretty badass. So the Philippe the Fair gets on, you know, he learns that this is happening. And he had Guy imprisoned until he called off the marriage. He kept Guy's daughter in prison in Paris until she died in 1306. So, no union there.
Rude.
Wait, just like held her hostage in there? Is that?
Yep.
Oh
Waited
my
until she
gosh.
died. This all culminated in war between the French and the Flemish, naturally, with Flanders winning an initial victory, but France ultimately prevailing, because it's France. I'm sorry, if you are a follower of 20th century history, you'll be like, what, Rob? I thought the French always lose. No, they used to be pretty good at this stuff. Remember Napoleon?
Fantasy war team right there.
Right, yeah.
Top of my list.
All right, I think you guys are going to like this story. So at the Battle of Montspiv, the two sides fought to a draw and opened negotiations. So in Flanders, the French and the Flemish, they just can't, nobody can win the better of the other. Now, this is medieval warfare, too, so it's not like guys are getting mowed down. People are like literally beating the hell out of each other with broadswords.
Oh, yeah.
It's a slow way to kill people. So
They're exhausted.
it's exhausting. People are tired. They're like, can we just talk this out?
They got all their aggression out, and then they're like, okay.
I just need a nap.
So they opened negotiations, but the French tried to surround the Flemish as they were negotiating, and the Flemish were like, whoa, what's going on here? And they launched an attack, surprising the French, who thought they were done fighting for that day, because they were so tired.
That's a cheap attack.
But the Flanders Knights got all the way to Philip the Fair's tent, and they nearly killed him, except that his personal bodyguard of knights defended his escape, and they all died in the escape, except for Philip the Fair. History would have completely changed, right?
Whoa.
That's very committed bodyguards you got there.
Yeah. A treaty was signed, and the Flemish gave up a few cities and paid a large fine, but were allowed to maintain their independence. Clearly, beginning with the reign of Count Guy, Flanders was developing better feelings for the British Isles, that is to say, than it was for France. So all of Flanders is now really angry at France. Flanders but they were like, oh, the British, they would never do this to us. This likely contributed to Alice Kyteler's decision to move from Flanders to Ireland. We are talking about an Irish witch who is really a Flemish witch. See what I mean? Like the bishop who would accuse her of witchcraft, Kyteler was not native Irish, and so the fact that Kyteler was Flemish had little to do with his attitude toward her. However, she's a foreigner, right? So this is what I'm trying to say here. Ledred, you would think the Frenchman is like, oh, all these Irish women are witches, but he wasn't, because he was French and she spoke French. She was from Flanders. The way that she got accused is that her accusers were mostly her own stepchildren who were native Irish because she married Irishmen. And her outsider status may have contributed to their suspicion of her as a Flemish woman. Let's go through. Are you ready for the marriages of Alice Kyteler?
Absolutely.
Multiple, yes.
Oh, yeah. Alice Kyteler married William Outlaw, a Kilkenny moneylender with whom she had at least one child. Outlaw died and she married another moneylender, Adam Le Blund of Callan. Together, Kyteler and Le Blund were accused of murder, the details of which are a bit murky, but significantly, they were defended by the Le Poer family. Le Blund willed his money to his stepson and died, making him Alice's second deceased husband, and she remarried a third time, this time to Richard de Val of Tipperary. De Val lived another 7 years, and then Alice outlived him too.
Hell yeah.
When de Val died, his son attempted to deprive Alice of her widow's dower, namely a third of her husband's possessions, but Alice sued. Then she married Sir John Le Poer of the Poer family, who had defended her in the original murder trial. Le Poer, however, was near death at the time of the witchcraft accusations in 1324. So that is 3 dead husbands and 1 on the verge of death at the time that she's accused of being a witch. So you can see.
I mean, it's not fair, but I get it.
Yeah, you can see where this is all coming from, right? So she has got tons of stepchildren, right? Because she keeps marrying these guys. She's their second wife, and and stuff. She's got all these stepchildren who harbor deep ill will against her and blame her for the deaths of their fathers.
I mean,
Bishop.
She can't help that, though.
You've got to be a little
do?
suspicious. I mean,
She keeps marrying these old guys.
Well,
yeah, but I mean, like, if your dad dies and then you find out that, like, every other guy that she married died,
Yes.
you gotta be a little suspicious,
Little
right?
funky.
Maybe
Little
take a look
funky.
at her spice cabinet or something.
isn't there like a name for that? Like a Black Widow or something?
Black
Widow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Black Widow. That's essentially what she's accused of being, is a Black Widow.
I refuse
Which
to believe
I will vouch for it not being her fault.
that. Yeah.
Because there's been multiple people I've dated who are no longer here.
That's true. Not your fault.
Had nothing to do with any of them, okay?
Unrelated to you. Well, good thing Bishop Ledred was not around for you. So Ledred translated their charges of maleficium, that she had cursed and killed the men, into a charge of heresy, because Pope John XXII had labeled witchcraft a form of heresy. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So the stepchildren say, all of our dads are dead. She cursed all of them with her witchy ways. We're going to sue her. And Ledred is like, no, you don't have to sue her. She's a heretic now. And they're like, oh, crap. That's fun and new.
Yeah. Send the church on her.
Do we still get money?
Yeah, right? Do we still get our cash? So, here we are. Ledred first seized her maidservant, Petronilla of Meath, and whipped her until she confessed. They then burnt her on the 3rd of November. Petronilla of Meath was the first person in Ireland burnt for heresy, even though there was no common law procedure for execution for the crime until 1401. Petronilla, a deeply unlucky woman there.
So they just chose to do that instead? Or, like, you said common law, so they didn't, like, put... Wait, does that mean they eventually, like, put it into the law that, like, that's what you would do?
Yes, that a heretic would be burned.
That's crazy.
A witchcraft, right? Heretic. Okay, are you ready for the accusations against Alice?
No, but go ahead. Yes.
I'm gonna assume
it.
it has something to do with all the dead husbands.
Yes.
Going on a limb here.
Gird your loins. Here we go. What follows are the accusations made against Alice Kyteler and her associates. Number 1. Kyteler would abjure Christ temporarily for a month or a year to work her sorcery. I love that it's temporary. Like, Jesus
I'll get back to you, Jesus.
Yeah.
Hold up real quick. Gonna do some devil worship. I'll be back
Time
to
out.
The witch says, I abjure you, but just for a little bit. And Jesus is like, that's okay, my child, you can come back whenever. And she's like, probably about a month and a half.
So I'll save you for later.
They made, number 2, Alice and her associates made sacrifices by killing living animals and scattering their pieces at the crossroads for a demon called the Son of Art.
like art?
Yeah, like
paintings
like
and
Picasso and
music
stuff.
and-
Yeah.
Was it just some paint that like spilled over and someone thought it was blood? And they're like, it's art. The son of art.
It is the
We found
son of
him.
art. It assumed a kind of landscapey shape. And they were like, Bob Ross! Look at those happy little clouds. They would seek answers and advice from demons. Number 3. I'm sorry, that was number 3.
Oh.
Number 4, they would excommunicate their husbands by candlelight and then blow out the candle and say, "Fi, fi, fi." Amen. Number 4, the amen's important
To
there.
do what? We don't get more context. That's the whole.
That's it. That's what they
That's
did.
it?
What more do you want? Fi, 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 amen. Come on, man. That's it.
What does
I
that
said
mean?
amen. I said amen, sir.
Oh, okay.
Number
more
4. Number 5. No more questions. Fi, fi, fi.
Oh.
They would boil up the intestines of the cocks they sacrificed to the demon in the skull of a robber and mix them with worms, herbs, nail clippings, buttocks hairs. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for buttocks hairs.
You do mean chickens, right? Just to clarify
Male
that.
chickens, sir. Cocks.
Okay.
And pieces of clothing from boys who had died before they were being baptized. Now, for those of you who are trying to cook this at home, I'm going to say one more time. The intestines of the cocks, of sacrificed to the demon, skull of a robber, mix it up with worms, herbs, nail clippings, buttocks hairs, pieces of clothing from boys who had died before being baptized. Got it?
Did they like find that recipe written down somewhere? Like
I
just,
think they made it
I'm
up.
just picturing. No, I'm picturing them making it up. Just being like, what would the witches put in it? Evil things like fingernails and butt hair and
But
worms.
specifically,
Gross stuff.
They're like, should it be pubes? No, not pubes. It's got to be worse than pubes. Pubes are
Butt
not gross enough. Butt hair, yeah.
you said of
gross.
boys who hadn't been baptized.
Yes,
Did they
correct.
keep like a track record of? I guess they do
don't know.
actually. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, it's possible. Yeah, like if an infant died very quickly right after birth.
But okay,
To
never. I don't have any.
grave rob.
Yeah, you'd probably have to
cloth
grave
from
rob. Yep.
their baby grave. Who has time for that?
To grave rob? Come on. It's the medieval period. What else are you going to
Typical
do?
Saturday evening.
Right, yeah, everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
She was publicly accused of using magic to infatuate and kill her husbands, finally getting to brass tacks here, and was using magic against her current husband, Sir John the Poor, who was, of course, not feeling so good. She had sex with an incubus, who was the son of Art, or Robin, son of Art. So that is to say, he was either called the son of Art, or he was called Robin, the son of Art, who appeared to her as a black cat, a black dog, or a black man, and who sometimes appeared with 2 taller, larger companions, one of whom carried an iron rod. A lot of
Hey.
cocks in this stuff here.
Sign me up.
She entrusted. she
I bet you
entrusted.
feel real inspired after that.
Oh no. She entrusted her body and soul to these demons, and they rewarded her with wealth. Number 8, I think. After having, this is a long one, so be prepared. After having been whipped, Petronilla confessed to sacrificing 3 roosters at the crossroads to the demon Robert, son of Art. She made potions in the skull of a decapitated robber using the brains and clothes of an unbaptized boy, and milfoil and spiders, slightly different recipe there. She made lotions and potions to arouse love and hate, to make women appear like they had goat horns when certain incantations were spoken. Not sure what that would be useful for, but you never know.
I can think of a few things.
Just Saturday night, right? When you're digging up graves,
It's
put some
just
goat
sick.
horns on,
It's just so cool.
Millie over there.
It's just a prank. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. What are these goat horns?
That's why that Pope is so scared of magic. He saw some girls with goat horns.
Damn. It's a rough night for him. That's how he became a priest.
Digging up baby graves.
He gave up women ever after that. She watched Alice have sex in broad daylight with a demon, Petronilla that is, who appeared as 3 black men holding iron rods. And then Alice wiped herself with her own bed sheets. Come on, Alice.
in broad daylight, like, really, you don't think the demons would want to be a little more sneaky, have like a midnight rendezvous, at least for that?
At least keep their iron rods hidden. You don't bring your iron rod out in the light of day.
Keep it classy.
Not in broad daylight.
There was... Save it for Twitch. There was...
Amen. 555.
555. Amen. There was, she said, no one more skilled at witchcraft than Alice, Petronilla. She refused the sacrament of penance, and Petronilla was burned at the stake in front of the crowd. Annales Hiberniae by James Grace, that the Annals of the Hibernians, or the Annals of the Irish, adds that Kyteler swept dust to her son William Outlaw's door, saying, "May all the luck of Kilkenny come to this house." Grace also added that William Outlaw wore around his naked body a devil's girdle and deserved death as much as Kyteler did. Okay, that's it.
Do we have a description of a devil's girdle?
I'm going to let you describe it for us. What are you picturing, Nikki?
One of those like full body harnesses, but it's like in the shape of like an upside down pentagram, but like, or like maybe like somehow Baphomet shaped.
Ooh.
But I don't think it was that cool.
You could get to work selling those on Etsy now.
Clean up shop there.
Yeah, man. Come on.
I know quite a few people who would get that.
We'll drop the link on Patreon.
I don't think they were that styling though.
You could make them. You could make them sexy. You could bring back the devil's girdle.
Did they have like a definition of what it was?
No, it's the medieval period.
They just don't tell you.
Yeah, they call it the devil's
Right.
girdle. And that the Annals Hiberniae themselves are extremely old. So yeah, there's no context for it. We have to guess at a
You
lot of
just
the
get to
stuff.
guess.
Yeah.
They're wearing thongs.
And that's why they sang the thong song all the time, and
Exactly.
Full
It's the
circle.
devil's girdle.
got to put an end to it.
It was actually called the Devil's Girdle Song.
And now, the aftermath of the Kyteler trial. The trial's aftermath was messy for pretty much everybody involved. William Outlaw was convicted of heresy for defending his mother and paid a large fine in penance, which built a lead roof on the cathedral. So, in other words, William Outlaw, who defended Alice Kyteler at trial, had to pay a large fine for defending her because she was successfully convicted. So, and they took the money and they made, well, they didn't really take the money. They said, we don't want your cash. We want you to build a lead roof on our cathedral. Subsequently, the cathedral collapsed under the weight of its lead roof.
Nope. Oh my God.
Yeah.
No one said this probably isn't a good idea.
Too late. The outlaws and the Lepawers rallied to defend Alice against the bishop, most notably Arnold Lepawer, the seneschal, also Roger Outlaw and Walter Islip. So she did have her defenders. These were all servants of the crown, by the way. They worked with Edward II, and they ended up in opposition to the papacy here and the bishopric. Although nominally successful in the Kyteler case, Ledred, the bishop who accused Alice, was forced into exile shortly afterwards, but he then returned to the bishopric of Ossory. Maurice Fitzthomas was a nobleman warring and gaming to be crowned king in Kilkenny, and Ledred was named as one who supported him. This wouldn't have gone over well with the English king. Ledred sided with Fitzthomas against the Powers, specifically Arnold. So, this is what I want to say about the politics here. The people who are defending Alice tend to be British adjacent. They like the British. They're with Edward II. So Ledred ends up getting into bed, metaphorically, with this guy Maurice Fitzthomas, who's trying to be the King of Ireland. Edward, the Edwards, maybe Edward III at this point, doesn't think this is awesome because they see Ireland as theirs. In the end, he had Arnold and Outlaw excommunicated, the bishop that is, but Outlaw was exonerated at the Irish Parliament, and Arnold died before he could be tried, and so it took several months to bury him since he was under Ledred's excommunication, but ultimately, of course, it's lifted. Eventually, Ledred feuded with the Archbishop of Dublin, whose name, remember, was Alexander Bicknor, and accused him of heresy for pardoning some of the supposed heretics that Ledred had accused. He's going around accusing everybody of heresy. And the other bishop is like, whoa, slow down, Tiger.
There can't be that many heretics.
So when Alexander Bicknor, Bishop Alexander, says, no, these guys aren't heretics, our Bishop Ledred is like, I excommunicate you. So
You're a heretic.
Well, at least they didn't get straight up killed. That seems to be more of a
On brand.
The Archbishop
centric thing.
excommunicated Ledred and called him to Dublin to be tried, but Ledred fled Ireland and sailed to France to seek protection at the papal court. Ledred was restored to his office, but well into the reign of Edward III, complaints rose up against him for persecuting his parishioners and accusing them of sorcery and heresy. He just can't give it up.
It's like, I'm bound to get someone with this. I know someone's doing it.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Right. Someone around here's a heretic.
Someone's wearing that girdle. In 1357... the Archbishop of York wrote to Pope Innocent IV that Ledred was decrepit and taken to fits of insanity and was using charges of heresy to squeeze his parishioners for money. At the end of his life, Ledred was focused on beautifying his cathedral. He died in 1360. Certainly not dying in glory, right? When people are saying you've lost your mind.
But they also said you made a really pretty church.
As for Alice Kyteler, she escaped to England with Petronilla's daughter, Basilia, and disappeared. Yeah, so Petronilla, who died, Petronilla was burned at the stake, and Alice snuck away with her daughter, Basilia.
Heck yeah.
What happened?
And then what?
Well, what happened to Alice Kyteler is unknown, but we know that she had managed to amass a fair amount of resources, and we can imagine that she was able to set herself up in relative comfort in her new home. Poor women with fewer connections and resources would not fare so well in the 2 centuries of witchcraft trials that would follow John XXII's decree. But we can imagine Alice living reasonably well off, I think, and having a decent end to her life. But we do not know. She is a disappearance. This is a series, Jake, where we will never know.
Oh my God.
The
you
fate
did say
of these
this.
people. Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't like that.
Yeah, she is a famously disappeared medieval person.
I like that. It means she didn't get burned at the stake. That's, even though you said disappearance
Yeah.
of, I don't know, I'm still expecting her to get burned at the stake.
Do you want to imagine into Alice's closing credits here?
Come up with their fan theories of where she ended up.
No,
Yes, a beautiful old witch hut. One of those, like, beautiful in the woods, moss-covered cabin.
She raises Basilia to be this,
She raised her to, like, no magic and stuff like that, but to keep it on the down low so she can, like, go into towns and, like, have a life.
She occasionally sneaks up. And she's the
think
reason.
Alice is sick of society. I could see her hiding away in a nice cabin somewhere.
And it's passed
You
down
get accused of heretics so many times. Like, you just don't want to deal with people anymore. I can imagine.
generation to generation. They pass down the tradition until finally J.K. Rowling is born.
No.
It's a shame.
I
isn't
don't
it?
know if we want to go there.
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah, it's a shame. Look, I was
Can't
a huge
enjoy her
Harry
anymore.
Potter fan at one point, but
All right, well, who do we fill in? Who works? It's passed down generation to generation until finally...
Stevie Nicks.
Stevie... She's not British. We need a British lady.
Oh, she could.
Kate Bush. Kate Bush
Kate
is born.
Kate Bush. There we go.
Yes,
That's the British Stevie Nicks.
She is the British Stevie Nicks.
She has the lineage of Alice.
She's running up that hill, Wuthering Heights. That's all about Alice.
All right, then. We did it. We fixed it. We did the history of Alice Kyteler. Any closing thoughts?
I'm really glad we don't live in medieval times, because I think I would be burned at the stake.
Who knows?
Very quickly.
Maybe you would have managed to kill off several husbands at first, and you could have escaped to another country.
You could have done it.
Oh, see, there's some relatable content.
You already
here with
know how
Alice,
to
and-
disguise yourself as a giant ball of wandering leaves.
Exactly.
So
Nobody
when
could
you
find
start
me.
teasing that dude but with your heresy, you're just in your bush. So when he turns around, it's just a bush behind him, and he's like, "Who
God.
did that?
Who is that?
Someone is doing sorcery here." It's you in a bush.
You'll never find me. I just like tuck down.
You roll out.
What
It's a
is that
tumbleweed.
tumbleweed?
And why is there a tumbleweed? And what century was this?
The witch has
Where
turned
are we?
herself into a tumbleweed.
No.
She's rolling to England.
Honestly, that would be a druid, but like instead of turning into an animal, you turn into just like a plant. That's pretty
Pile of
cool.
leaves.
Pretty cool.
A pile of leaves, a bush,
I'm here for that.
a Kate bush, if you will.
A cape
I
bush.
can't push.
We
Bringing
are
it all back.
dancing around
Running up that
pubic
hill.
hair in every conceivable way here right now.
We always are.
I hereby adjourn and declare closed this meeting of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors until such a time as we get together and do it again. Next up on Occult Confessions, we're going to look into a mysterious, mythical African king, Prester John. So something to look forward to. Strange legends around this mythical king in Abyssinia. I hope we will be able to join you then. My name is Dr. Rob C. Thompson, joined by Jake Wheatley, our Knight of the Dangling Serpent.
Wonderful as always.
Doing wonderful.
Pleasure to be here. I was gonna say pleasant to be here.
So
You're
pleasant.
welcome for being here.
And Nikki Hiller Henderson, our Naked Truth.
Enjoy some light heretics without risk of getting burned at the stake as a treat for your medieval ancestors.
Keep it light. Keep it light. Here on Occult Confessions. We did it. Hooray.
Doom, doom. I was waiting for like the Law and Order sound.
Can we go to the Lego store?
Yeah, maybe. If you go to bed right now, we'll talk about it in the morning.
Please. Savannah has a lot more Legos than us.
I know. Savannah does have a lot of Legos. That's true. Yes. Okay,
That's
go to
very
bed now.
true.
Can we go to Lego shop?
Did she work at Lego?
She does.
She does. Yeah.
She does.
She only for one more month. I'm about to hire her away from them.
That's exciting.
Okay.
Do you like Lego?
Yes. Good night, Everett.
The version of Lego.
Got it. The kids went to work with me today, and we were setting up for our next events, and Savannah had all her toys.
That's all he can think about. He's gonna be dreaming about Lego.
Ay, ay, ay.